I am right here on the bullpen with Adam the Bull. Yes, for a moment, I forgot the name of my podcast. Yesterday, I couldn't remember the date. Today, for a moment, I forgot the name of my podcast. And maybe you didn't realize it, especially if you're just listening and not watching. But I keep it real. You know that. And for a hair of a second, is there such thing as a hair of a second? I forgot the name of the podcast. Hello, everybody. Whether you're listening today, tomorrow, maybe this is 10 years from now. Maybe I'm saying I screwed up yesterday. I mean, by the time you listen to this, could be 2052, and I could be dead. The world could be over. I have no idea what's going on. But anyway, a lot to get to on today's show. It is still the All-Star break, of course. Baseball coming back today for a couple of games. Guardians come back tomorrow on Friday, and so there will be some baseball by the end of the week, but obviously it's the slowest week of the year. But a lot, I do have plenty to get to today, including the Madden rankings, which I'm really sour on after I saw the wide receiver rankings. But where did Nick Chubb end up in terms of the running back rankings on Madden? Plus, an interesting article I came across last night on ESPN Plus. This is fascinating. We're going to talk about this on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show as well. NFL Future Power Rankings 2022. Projections for all 32 teams for the next 3 seasons. Who's voting on this? How do they get their rankings? And where are the Browns overall and in the AFC? I'll get to that coming up next. It's The Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Podcast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Bow, 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 bow. All right, welcome back to the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. I remembered it this time. That's because I was just reminded by my intro there. So the headline of the article from ESPN, is NFL Future Power Rankings 2022 projections for all 32 NFL teams for the next 3 years. So this is what they did. First of all, there are 4 guys involved in this from ESPN. It's Jeremy Fowler, Field Yates, Louis Riddick, and Seth Walder. You probably know who those guys are. Maybe you don't know Seth Walder. He's a writer, but they're all sharp guys. They know the NFL well. Obviously, Louis Riddick played and he's been in front offices, so they're all highly respected. These guys, even the guys who are writers, they know the NFL really well. So it's an opinion, ultimately, and you could take it with a grain of salt if you choose. Doesn't mean this is gospel. I don't necessarily agree with everything they put here, but this is their opinion from guys who know football pretty well. So take it for what it's worth. To project which NFL franchises are in the best shape for the next 3 seasons, again, 22, 23, 24, they asked their 4 panelists to rate each team's quarterback situation, remaining roster not including quarterback, drafting ability, front office, and coach using the following scale. 100 is elite, 90 is great, 80 is very good, 70 is average, 60 very bad, 50 and below is disastrous. After averaging the results from the panelists, each of the 5 categories were weighted to create the overall score. The rosters were 30%, quarterback 20%, draft 15%, front office 15%, and coaching 20%. Now, again, well, I shouldn't say again, because I like what they're doing here. I would have weighed the quarterback at a higher. I don't understand why the roster's 30 and the quarterback's 20. To me, the quarterback should be weighed at more than 20%. But that's how they've decided to do it. So where do the Browns rank? Let me give you the top 10 here. Number 1, the Buffalo Bills. Number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 3 is a tie between the Green Bay Packers and the Los Angeles Rams. Number 5, the Los Angeles Chargers, who have not made the playoffs the last 2 years with Justin Herbert. Number 6, the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 7, the Baltimore Ravens. So yes, the Browns are at least third in the AFC, or in the AFC North. 8, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 9, the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know about that one. And tied for 10th, your Cleveland Browns with the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the Browns got an overall score of 82.6. What is the weakness considered by this panel? The Browns' biggest weakness is the draft. According to this panel of 4 guys, the Browns finished 7th overall, or 7th in roster, minus the quarterback, 10th in quarterback. Now, I think the Browns should be higher, but may not be unfair to be 10th with the unknown situation of Watson. You got to factor that in. 12th in front office, 14th in coaching, middle of the pack, and 23rd in draft. What I don't understand is, if you think the draft is 23rd, then why is the front office 12th? I don't know. But anyway, here's what they say about the Browns. Here we go. Why they're here. This again from ESPN Plus. It's irresponsible to have a football-only conversation about the Browns roster as the highest player on it. Quarterback Deshaun Watson faces civil charges, 4 more civil charges, 20 settlements. The Browns do possess one of the league's best rosters on paper with a nice blend of homegrown stars, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, and those acquired externally, Wyatt Teller, Amari Cooper, that sets this team up to be excellent. That from Field Yates. From Lewis Riddick, talks about their biggest worry. He says, last year I was worried about the long-term valuation of Baker Mayfield, but his performance in 21 led the Browns to go in a different direction and acquire Watson. But no one knows when we will see Watson on the field and what he will look like when he does return. And Jacoby Brissett could be leading this offense in the short term. What change could be for the better? Lewis Riddick says, the Browns can prioritize the passing game with more help on the outside. With a new quarterback in 22, they will need reinforcements at wide receiver behind Cooper. Cleveland, known for its run game prowess, attempted 520 passes last year, the 6th lowest total in the NFL. All the teams in this range either don't have a top quarterback or had injuries at the position last year. Tweaking the formula over the next few years will serve Cleveland well. That from Jeremy Fowler. And stat to know from Wilder, running back Nick Chubb has recorded at least 0.9 rush yards over expectation per carry in every season of his NFL career per Next Gen Stats. In other words, the Browns have one of the most reliable runners in the league. Now, so there you go. Now, I think it's interesting. I wonder if you knew for sure, if they knew for sure where the Browns, or how many games Deshaun Watson was going to be suspended for, how much higher the Browns would be on this list. And you look at, for example, overall roster. So the Browns are 7th in the AFC on this list. Buffalo, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Chargers, Baltimore, and Indy all ahead. I was very surprised that Indy was ahead. The rest of the team, certainly you can make a case, especially with the unknown status of Deshaun Watson. The Indy one had me scratching my head. But what I want to look at here is where the Browns rank in rest of the roster. Because we've talked so much about, hey, even if it's Jacoby, like I saw somebody today, my man Xavier P. on Twitter saying, I think he was saying this, I got to clarify with him, that he thinks the Browns will go 10-7 if Jacoby Brissett played the whole season. And listen, the Browns are a talented team, but you are crazy if you think the Browns are going 10-7 with Jacoby Brissett. I mean, come on. Jacoby Brissett is probably not playing much better than Baker did last year. Maybe he'll have a few less turnovers, but they're not going 10-7. Not with this schedule and this conference and this division with Jacoby Brissett. So I don't see that. And when you look, what I'm curious about is the overall roster grade, because I think fans are, I don't want to say overrating the roster, because I think I've talked about this a lot. I think the Browns roster is really good. However, when I look at these other teams' overall roster, the Bills, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Bengals, and to a little bit of a lesser degree, the Ravens and Colts, they're really good teams. They're also really talented. And that's why without Deshaun Watson, the Browns don't have a chance. Nobody does. You can't win in this conference. That's why I don't think the Colts have a chance either. because they don't have a good enough quarterback. I don't think at least the Browns have a good enough quarterback. We just don't know how many games he's going to play. But again, they're great on the rest of the roster besides the quarterback. So the Bills got a 91 there. The Chiefs got an 84.8. Just looking at the AFC teams. The Chargers got an 88.3. The Bengals, an 87.3. The Ravens, an 83. And then the Browns, the Colts, 84. Let's see. 84.3. And the Browns got an 85.5. So that's the point. Like, most people think, seems to be the general consensus, that the Bills have the best non-quarterback roster and maybe the best quarterback, certainly one of the best. And that the Browns, Colts, Ravens, Bengals, and Chiefs are all kind of close. Like the rest of those other 5 AFC teams, in terms of their grade. Now, again, this is just the opinion of 4 guys, but I think there's a lot of truth there. Like the Browns roster is really good, right? It's competitive. It's with, a point or two better or worse than every team in the AFC, according to this, except for the Bills, who are head and shoulders above the other 5 teams. So, yeah, the Browns have the rest of the roster to compete with the other, with the Bengals, with the Ravens, with the Bills, with the Chiefs, with the Chargers, maybe the Colts. The problem is, without Watson, they don't have a better quarterback than any of those teams. And even with Watson, they don't have a clearly better quarterback than any of those teams either, except for the Colts and, in my opinion, the Ravens. But now they have same tier, because I think Burrow, Herbert, Watson, Mahomes, and Allen, in my opinion, are all the same tier of quarterback. That's how I see it. The only thing you could say, though, is outside of Herbert, the other 3 guys, Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, are all much more accomplished in the postseason than Deshaun Watson. And those guys haven't played that many more games. Well, Burrow's played less games than Watson. The other 2 guys have not played much more, if at all. So Watson's got more to prove. Allen's been to the AFC Championship game twice. I'm sorry. Allen's been to the AFC Championship game once. Burrow's been to the Super Bowl, and Patrick Mahomes has been to 2 Super Bowls and won 1. So, I guess the bottom line on that is, at first glance, you say, wow, just tied for 10th? Well, hey, considering all the unknowns around Watson today, I don't think that's bad. If we knew Watson was going to be good to go, the Browns are probably, I would say, they're moved up past the Colts, maybe past the Bucs. Let's see, because the quarterback score would go up. They'd probably be maybe ahead of the Ravens, maybe even ahead of the Bengals. I think they might be. I think if the uncertainty was gone with Deshaun, they'd probably be either 4th, 5th, or 6th, or 5th, 6th, or 7th with the Chargers and the Bengals. Like, they'd be in that mix. 5, 6, and 7. They'd move up a few slots. I think they'd be in one of those 3 slots if there was less uncertainty. And what does that mean? Well, you don't have to be the best team on paper to win the Super Bowl. You have to be one of the best teams on paper to win the Super Bowl. And I think the Browns are. Because even with they have more uncertainty at the quarterback position at the moment than any of these other teams in the top 2. Well, same, I would say equal with San Francisco. The difference is their uncertainty is only about how many games their star quarterback will play, as opposed to San Francisco, where they don't know if they have a good enough quarterback. And they don't know if their first-round pick last year is going to be ready to go. And even if he is, we have no idea if he's any good. The Colts in that top 10 too, they have a mediocre at best quarterback situation. There's just so much of a ceiling. The Colts, but any of those other teams, in my opinion, can win the Super Bowl. All 10 of the top 11 teams there, including the 49ers, and I would say the 49ers are more of a long shot, in my opinion. I'd be surprised if the Colts won the Super Bowl. I'd be surprised if the Niners won the Super Bowl. I think the Broncos, who they have 12th overall, I'd give them a better chance to win the Super Bowl than those 2 teams. And that's it. I think there's 9 teams that are legitimate Super Bowl contenders, and the Browns are one of them. if Deshaun Watson plays at least 9 games. And even if he only plays 9, it makes it tough. But if they make the playoffs, then they'll have a chance. With Deshaun Watson, they have a chance. But it's a lot of teams. And of those 9 teams, 6 are in the AFC. That makes it very challenging. Even with a great quarterback, there's other great quarterbacks in this conference. And then even the Colts and Broncos, to me, along with San Fran, are fringe Super Bowl contenders. And that puts you up to 8 AFC teams. Only 7 make the playoffs. The AFC is loaded. All right. Love your reaction to this article. We'll also talk about it on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. When we come back, I'll talk about the Madden ratings for the running backs and some other positions to see where the Browns stand there. I'll get to that in a moment. But first, I want to talk to you about Built Bar. Stop drooling and listen. For the people who invented healthy and tasty comes the latest gift to your taste buds. You've probably tried the amazing Coconut Brownie Chunk Built Bar, but guess what? Your friends at Built have given the Coconut Brownie Chunk the Puffs treatment. That's right. The Coconut Brownie Chunk Built Bar you love in a deliciously chewy marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. It's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. The best part, they taste amazing and they're guilt-free. So go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. But you got to go to Built.com. That's BUILT.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order with Built Bar. Yeah. All right. So, want to get back to the NFL. I saw last night some of the other Madden ratings are out. Now, I'm sour on the Madden ratings because the wide receiver ratings were absurd. But I think in some of these other spots, the or the Madden ratings have done a better job here. In running back, Nick Chubb has finished. They have him tied for second with a 96. He and Christian McCaffrey. I don't know how Jonathan Taylor's fourth after the year he had. I get that McCaffrey, when he's on the field, is still awesome. That's the difference between him and Saquon Barkley. Like, you look at McCaffrey and Barkley, they both missed a ton of time the last 2 years. But the difference is, when McCaffrey's been on the field, he's still been great. There's been no decline in his play. And when Saquon Barkley's been on the field, he's not been great. He's looked pedestrian. That's looking like a really terrible pick by the Giants, but nobody cares. From a fantasy football perspective, I'm seeing a lot. I'm in 4 leagues. We're going to be doing one here with the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, and I do one league with a bunch of other guys here in Rocky River, and it's called the Rocky River Dads League. And then I do some with guys from where I grew up. Although at this point now, half the guys in the league are from other parts of the country. But from a fantasy football perspective, I think Jonathan Taylor is the no-brainer number 1 pick. If you're in a 2-quarterback league, that changes it, but I don't think a lot of people do that. I do in some of my leagues, but I'm noticing in a lot of mock drafts or talking with some friends that Christian McCaffrey is often going 2 or certainly in the top 5. And as much as I like Christian McCaffrey's talent, and as much as I said that at least when he's been healthy, he has played at an extremely high level. Like, there's no drop off in what he's done on the field. The problem is he hasn't been on the field enough. And I don't understand. And I know the guy in his first 3 years didn't miss any time. But he's been a huge workhorse, okay? He's in his 6th year in the league now, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for running back it can be, especially with the amount of carries he had, and touches, I should say, not just carries, because he's had a ton of receptions. But in the last 2 years, he's played a total of 10 games. I can't, and if you're a fantasy football person, guy, girl, whatever, I just, and you know me, if you've listened to me for the past decade plus, I am not risk averse. Like, I'm happy to take a chance. I like to gamble. I like to be aggressive, but not this. I am baffled by people taking Christian McCaffrey, who's had multiple injuries over the past 2 years, in the top 5 of a fantasy draft. I think that's crazy. I'm less worried about Derrick Henry because it's only 1 injury that he had. But I mean, again, in the last 2 years, he's played in 10 of 33 games. No thanks. I'll let somebody else, and you should let somebody else take McCaffrey. But In terms of his on-the-field skill, yeah, it's high. Derrick Henry was number one with a 97. Nick Chubb, McCaffrey tied for second, 96. Jonathan Taylor got a 95. Dalvin Cook a 94. That's the top 5. 6 through 10, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, and then Austin Eckler and Zeke Elliott are tied for 9th. I wouldn't have Zeke Elliott that high. I'd have some other guys. I think he's on the decline, although he was hurt last year. We'll see if he bounces back. I like Eckler. I like Eckler a lot. I think he's the most underrated back in the league. From a fantasy perspective, he's certainly better than some of these other guys. If you're drafting high, and I'm gonna be drafting pretty high in one of my redraft leagues, but I'm going, for me, I'm taking Jonathan Taylor 1. Even with the injury last year, I'm still taking Derrick Henry as my second running back. But at 2 and 3, I'm taking either Jamar Chase or Jefferson. Of course, the LSU teammates. They should go 2-3 in my opinion. Now 4 is the question. Some people are going McCaffrey, which I wouldn't do. I think you can make a case for Cooper Kupp there, which I think ultimately is what you do. And some people might be thinking, well, how do you take Jefferson and Chase over Kupp? It's just my opinion. I think it's more likely they continue to go up, and I think Kupp takes a step back a little. Still be great. I still think him 4, but you could take Kupp 2. And then to me, Derrick Henry goes 5. And then after that, there's a bunch of different guys. I mean, I think at 6, you could take Alvin Kamara. You could take Dalvin Cook. You could take McCaffrey. I wouldn't. You could take Austin Eckler there. You could take, now some people might think Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill. I wasn't planning on going down a fantasy road, but we're talking about Madden anyway. That's another type of fantasy. So I'm a little gun shy on Adams and Hill. I don't, especially Tyreek Hill. I don't love that situation. We'll see. I mean, he's obviously a great talent, but I'd be worried. Nick Chubb is one of those players who's a much better NFL back than a fantasy back. Like, he's a good fantasy back. He's a great NFL back. But he's not a great fantasy back because he doesn't catch a lot of passes. And he splits time, we know, to some degree. As opposed to like Henry and McCaffrey when he's healthy, Taylor, Cook, Mixon, Kamara, Eckler, those guys don't share carries. Elliott does. Aaron Jones does now with, what's his name? The kid, A.J. Dillon. Big kid. So, anyway, there you go. So there's the running back list. A couple other things. On the safety list, no Browns there. Not a surprise. I mean, they've got some decent safeties, but nobody played at a top 10 Madden level. Last year, Tyrann Mathieu, number 1 with a 94. At kicker, the rookie kicker, not on the list. But I don't think they put rookies, but I'm not sure. Number 1, Justin Tucker, of course, with a 90. Edge rushers, Myles Garrett got a 99. Not a lot of 99s. He got one of them. He's number 1. Jadeveon Clowney not on the list. Linebackers, no Browns. No surprise there. Mentioned the wide receivers. Somehow, Jamar Chase is not on the list. That's crazy. And Justin Jefferson is 6. That is just that. Amari Cooper 10. We talked about the other day. David Njoku does not make the top 10 tight ends. Travis Kelce, number 1 there. So there you go. That's some of the Madden ratings in that vein. All right. I'm going to take a break. When I come back, we'll start looking ahead to the second half of the baseball season. I got some more thoughts on Deshaun Watson, who I've touched on a little bit tonight, and a few more things when we come back next. This is The Bullpen with Adam the Bull. Folks, betonline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the number 1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and golf. Everything. Whatever you want, they've got you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, a couple other things here. Looking forward to baseball getting back. I know some people don't care. And some people hear baseball and they go to sleep. I'll shut off the podcast now. Don't do that. I want to see, I was talking about this yesterday, about all 3 teams possibly getting the playoffs. I saw one response to it was a good response, but of course I lost it now. But I think a lot of people are confident that all three teams will make the playoffs in the next year or two. I think that I think in the next 2 years that all three teams will make the playoffs for the first time in the history of Cleveland. All three teams make the playoffs. Again, as I mentioned in yesterday's podcast, only 3 times ever have all three teams been over 500 in the same year. Last time was 2007. And then once in 94, which the only team that didn't make the playoffs that year was the Indians. They couldn't because there was a strike that ended the season, but they didn't make it. And then I think it was 70, some year in the 70s now. I can't remember the third one. 76 the Indians were pretty awful in the 70s and 80s, but they had 1 or 2 years, I think maybe only one where they were over 500, but that year happened to be a year the Cavs were decent and the Browns, they were all over 500 that year, but they didn't all make the playoffs. The Indians did not make the playoffs forever until 95. So anyway, a couple of things. Deshaun Watson, obviously we're still waiting. I think at this point we feel like it could happen every day. But also at this point, as we've said so many times, we all have no clue. The only person that knows when this is going to be resolved is Judge Robinson. But as the days continue to go by, and it becomes more and more, at least it seems more and more obvious that she is taking this extremely seriously, that she's not going to be pressured by the NFL clock. As every day goes by, I think it's a good sign for Watson. I also think, because part of it is the longer this, and part of it is because I don't think she's going to have that strong a penalty. Again, I don't know. I'm just my thought. And the longer this goes, if she doesn't put too harsh a penalty, I think there's pressure, big time pressure, building on the NFL to not overstep her. They are going to look really, really bad if they do that. All right. So the Guardians in the second half, the Guardians have, the All-Star break is the trade deadline, not the All-Star break, less than 2 weeks away. Will the Guardians get aggressive? Will it be another year where they're buying and selling? We shall see. But they are only 2 games out of first place in the AL Central. Now, even though there's 3 wild cards now and the Guardians are only 2.5 out of the wild card, I think, to me, I think the only chance for the Guardians to make the playoffs is the division. I just don't buy in the end that they're going to be in a wild card. The only reason I give them a chance is because the AL East is so tough that they're going to beat each other up. But ultimately, I'd just be shocked if they had a better record than Toronto or Boston or Tampa, or even the Mariners, who won 14 in a row going into the break. But the division is very winnable. There is no good team in this division. The Twins, Guardians, and White Sox are all like slightly above average teams. That's the reality. It's a weak division. And so the Guardians have an opportunity, but they need upgrades. We've talked about this a lot. They need a couple of bats. I think they could use another arm. We'll see what they could do. They've got, we saw the 3 All-Stars out there, Ramirez, Jimenez, and Clase, all shining bright. I mean, Jimenez didn't hit, but Ramirez got 2 hits, and Jimenez made 2 great plays in the field, especially that double play when he went behind the back. It was a beautiful play of the night. And Clase was lights out in the 9th inning to get the save, striking out the side, only the second pitcher ever strike out the side in an all-star game in 10 or less pitches. In there with Jacob deGrom, was extremely impressive, extremely dominant. But I'm excited for them to get started with the second half of the season, even though we're really technically past the halfway point. But the Guardians will start Friday night. They're back. And, of course, that game's on Apple TV. So if you don't have – can you get anything right, baseball? And I have Apple TV, and I like Apple TV, but I don't know what percentage of the fans have Apple TV. It's probably not that high. And the first game back from the All-Star break, fans can't watch the game. I mean, it's almost like at times they're trying to chase people away. I get it. You're trying to make money, but you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. If you're a Guardians fan and you don't have Apple TV, you're like, I've been waiting almost a week to see my team, and now I can't watch them play on Friday night. But a long road trip for the Guardians to start the second half. They ended the All-Star break at home, so they played Sunday was the 17th? So the last home game was July 17th. They will not play at home again until August the 1st. They're going 2 weeks without a home game. They are on a brutal 11-game road trip. This could very well make or break the season because remember, the trade deadline is the next home game. I believe the deadline is Monday, August 1st. Usually it's the 31st, but I think because it's a Sunday, they moved it to August 1st, if I remember correctly. So there's 11 games between now and the All-Star, I keep saying All-Star break, between now and the trade deadline to see, and the ownership and management is going to decide, hey, is this team good enough for us to spend the money, which we know how tight they are, to make the playoffs. They're 2 games over 500, 2 games out of division lead, tied in the loss column, but an 11-game road trip to the White Sox, the Red Sox, and Tampa. That is brutal. You're going to face some good pitchers. Everybody's going to be fairly rested after the All-Star break and 4 days off. The Guardians had 5 days off. I said the Guardians played the last game on the 17th, but I forgot they got rained out. So their last game at home was the 16th, and they won't play again until the 31st. To the 1st. So this 11-game road trip could make or break the season. Certainly could make or break whether they make a move. They have a great trip here against these really tough teams. I mean, the White Sox have played better. They're, above average team. Boston's good, and Tampa Bay's very good. So each round it gets better. In a 4-game series in Chicago, then 4 in Boston, and 3 in Tampa. That's not easy. They go 6-5 on that trip. I'll be thrilled. But will it be to the point where it's like season defining? They have a massively good road trip. Wow. Maybe you 6-7 games over 500 coming off that. But if you have a bad road trip, they're in big trouble because they come home and they play Arizona, but then they got the Astros coming in for 4. Then they go to Detroit, but then after that, they go to Toronto. And I guess we'll know who's unvaccinated on the Guardians when they go to Toronto in the middle of August. They got 2 series with the Mariners still. They got the Padres on the road. So, I mean, you got a pretty tough stretch. And the Guardians will certainly be tested here over the next couple of weeks. But I'll look forward to see it. All right, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Adam the Bull. There you go. Check out my Cameo profile. I can make videos for weddings, for congratulations, to rip your buddy in a fantasy football league, to birthdays, whatever you need. I can be hired for other events. Check out the Book the Bull tab at adamthebull.com. Make sure you're watching the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And please subscribe. We got to get to 11,000 subscribers by the end of July. We're about 680 away, something like that, last time I checked. Get us there. You can obviously listen to my podcast under the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show umbrella on YouTube. I have my own playlist there. And also check out the Locked On Browns podcast with my guy G. Bush and Jeff Lloyd. I will talk to you again tomorrow. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. See ya.